Oh, Jon Gruden. I'll tell you the most interesting part about the situation. As everyone knows, it has to do with the emails that are that have been exposed about stuff that he has said between the years 2011 and 2018. Everyone who's watching this is probably already aware of everything that involves that. When situations like this come up, the situation itself, what has been done, I don't even focus on that anymore because it speaks for itself. I focus on the people that defend blatant actions. This isn't an accusation. This isn't a wait and see, we'll let the courts. Nah. This is blatant. He's admitted to it. The craziest part about it is the people that defend it. We live in this hyper defense society nowadays. Some of it warranted, and I think some of it has turned into this complete, you're not even thinking rationally at a certain point. Honestly, and I think a lot of it has to do with, as men, we feel this we're being attacked in today's world type of thing. So everything, if we are being accused, if we are being attacked, if we are actually being held accountable, somehow it's people being snowflakes, it's people being quote unquote woke. And it's funny how woke and snowflake will be brought into this, even though it has nothing to do with politics. It has strictly to do with someone showing their true colors in private in a lot of ways. And I like, what's interesting about that argument is, it was said in private. It was said in private, so whoever brought it to light is the one that's wrong. Okay. So you're saying if you do something in private, and it is a bad thing you do in private. Now, technically, his situation isn't quote-unquote illegal, but it sure makes people look at you different, especially in the profession that you chose and get a 10-year, $100 million contract where it's a predominant league that is black. And it's funny also how he didn't get suspended or fined for the race comment to DeMaurice Smith. It took the emails coming out being anti-homophobic, transphobic, anti-Semitic. He was anti a lot of things. It was definitely not a great look for Chucky. Whoever the bride of Chucky is, though, she's got a payday coming. Had to sneak that one in. But seriously, it's funny how people will justify and say, well, he said it in private. This was never supposed to be meant public. What you do in public says more about who you are than what you do in public. What you do in private, I meant to say, says more about who you are than what you do in public. So a lot of us in private, there probably is things we wouldn't want people to know. But when people try to say you wouldn't want people to look at your emails, I would say, not necessarily. I wouldn't want them to get my Amazon coupons, but I wouldn't be worried about being plastered all over the internet for being a racist or being phobic of any type or getting certain newsletters or subscriptions that I wouldn't want people knowing. Because when people that want to defend, email is supposed to be private. The internet, if you live and have half a brain cell, you should know nothing on the internet is private anymore. You use social media apps, blah, blah, blah. Easily hackable. Emails are easily hackable. Anyone can hack into your bank account. All your money could be gone in half a day and you'd be fucked. And there's nothing you could probably do about it. But the issue is this hyper defense of wanting to defend bad behavior in society. I don't want to make this strictly just about Jon Gruden and emails because I feel like that's going to be covered. I'm going to cover on a more general sense of what I feel this situation exposes more about us. And what inspired this video was reading the YouTube comments about people wanting to justify this. A lot of comments would go, I don't agree with what he said in the emails, but first of all, heavy contradiction. You can't say I don't agree. I agree something's wrong, but it doesn't really, you're really just trying to butter up what you really want to say. What's frustrating about this situation in particular is the simple fact that it seems people are more mad that stuff got revealed than what was actually revealed. People, it's funny how we live where people want to get more mad in semantics instead of the actual letter of what should be mad about, what's being exposed. People want to focus on everything. How these get released? This must be an inside job, blah, blah, blah. Let's say someone did have an agenda. They wanted Gruden fired, right? Let's say that is true, right? Does that mean just because you did something 10 years ago, it makes it okay? Does that mean that you should not be held accountable when you do some very, very offensive or very, very bad stuff? Now, I'm not going to put this on the level of anything illegal because I don't think it's technically illegal, but it's just morally wrong. And I would like to think most people would agree that making marks about other people in different communities, when it's not even in a humorous way, in a comedic way, and it's just blatant, oh, he's this, which equates to a bad person. To me, I want to focus on the fact that also, notice how he didn't quote unquote resign, which is funny how we give people the grace to quote unquote make separately parted ways when other people would just get fired in those situations. But also understand that when you part ways and you resign, you probably don't get, they probably do some small buyout and you don't have to pay a majority of the contract, where if they would have just fired him, they probably would have had to pay him like 70 or 80% of the contract left, which wouldn't make a whole lot of sense financially. Because the league can't fire him, but the team has to fire him. And the league can suspend and fine him, but it's funny how he didn't even get suspended or fined. And it was just kind of this mutual agreement on Monday when people were covering the emails in terms of when Friday and Monday when debate shows and talk shows and sports would cover the topic. It's very funny how most people on that specific, when the DeMaurice Smith comments making of his lips type of thing came out, comparing his lips to Michelin tires, which I think we all kind of know what he's trying to say. It's funny how that one doesn't even get him fined, doesn't get him suspended. He may have gotten fined, suspended, but he definitely wasn't going to get fired. And even people that would be anti what he said even say, you know what, he's probably not going to get fired or suspended. You know what, if this was just one incident, we'll give him the grace or whatever. But it's funny how it took him offending a bunch of other communities or calling Roger Goodell a faggot, his exact words, call him a pussy. And all this was kind of directed during the lockout, didn't like the way negotiations, even though he wasn't a coach in the NFL, he was a Monday Night Football analyst, which everyone kind of remembers him as. And people, it's also another funny thing, people will make the point he wasn't an employee of the NFL either. So he also shouldn't be, that's another thing. Oh, well, this has nothing to do with the NFL. He was an ESPN employee. It's like, okay. In case you don't know, NFL, they have licensing deals with, NBC, ESPN for their rights and stuff. ESPN pays hundreds of millions of dollars to broadcast the NFL games. Just one game a week. Hundreds of millions of dollars. And same with the NBA. The league actually does have say in who they can actually approve or not approve someone being on the broadcast, someone being on the halftime show. They have a lot more control over who's on these shows than you would think. So technically, if you want to go by technical, he technically is and was an employee of the NFL still, because he still represents the NFL. And also, and I hate making parallels of work environments in the real world and sports like football and NBA and baseball, blah, blah, blah. Because we just got to acknowledge that sport locker rooms and the way sports business works is just not the same as real business. It's just not. There's a lot more money at stake, value, constant turnover, blah, blah, blah. And also, there's locker rooms where dudes just get flat out naked and reporters have a right to interview people while they're changing to getting naked, and it's just this accepted thing. I find it funny how people want to make the parallel that, oh, well, since he wasn't an employee of the NFL, that shouldn't be used against him. You can't fire someone for something they didn't do when they didn't even work for you. Okay, since we want to make real world comparisons, companies do that all the time. Companies will literally not hire you because of stuff you have said or done in the past. Companies can fire you based off stuff that you post on social media. Notice the common thing here? Things that you've said, things that you've done. Companies, you could work somewhere for 6 years. They could find some from 7 years ago that doesn't fit their values. Or if you are in a higher position more than anything, which he is in a leadership position, by the way. He literally is in charge of, he's kind of like in a dual relationship of who they cut, who they sign, like kind of dictates how much money players get paid in a sense. When you are in those type of leadership position and have that much power, of course it matters. You expect someone, just forget the race thing, the race comment. It's kind of ironic now that they have the only openly gay player in the NFL. So, on combination of you're going to a predominantly black locker room, you also have the one openly gay player in the NFL and some remarks you made. In my opinion, I think he got fired more along the lines, Roger Goodell probably, oh, you're calling me a faggot? You're calling me a fucking pussy? I'm going to get you fired. And guess what? I think Roger Goodell got him fired. And I don't even think he's necessarily wrong. But the point of that is that yes, your past and stuff you have done does matter. Jobs will not hire you, and jobs will fire you based off what you've done or what you haven't done. You have a criminal record? 70% of jobs probably won't hire you. Your job selection is pretty limited. So don't sit here and say, it happened 10 years ago. Doesn't matter. Okay. Okay, well, if someone in your family gets murdered 10 years ago, throw them into a lake, they're floating along. And then all of a sudden, they get found 10 years later. And then they find out who killed them. You're just going to be like, you know what? It happened 10 years ago. I don't care for justice. I don't care to make it right. It happened 10 years ago. They shouldn't be held accountable. And I think that's a bigger issue. We don't want to hold people accountable when they do fucked up shit. But that's what I think about Jon Gruden. And you should too.